How is everybody doing this evening? Terrific. How many people were here last year at the Theater in the Woods? How many people, this is the first time you've seen me here at the Theater in the Woods? Excellent. How many people don't know they're at the Theater in the Woods right now? Folks, I can't tell you, I am so excited and so thrilled, as I was telling Tom backstage, to get up and have an opportunity to talk to a group of my fellow pilots, and there must be about 8 million of you out there right now, is just such an exciting thing. I feel about as happy as that guy 3 weeks ago at the LA Center, who had, as an air traffic controller, had a great sense of humor in controlling a flight out of Edwards Air Force Base, a stealth fighter on departure. The stealth fighter calls up Los Angeles approach control, and the LA Center says, "Roger, stealth fighter, turn left heading 320 degrees, radar contact." What a wonderful feeling. Gosh, it is so exciting to be here. We're going to have a great deal of fun tonight. How many people here are looking forward to learning a few things, but most importantly, having a lot of fun and experiencing the joy and thrill of being in aviation? Excellent. Excellent. You folks up here, up in front, are in great jeopardy as far as I'm concerned, because I get so excited when I talk, and especially talking about something like aviation, that I could burst into flames, catch fire, and you're all in great jeopardy, so be prepared to move back. My wife and I came here on a flight. It was actually an inexpensive flight, because whenever we travel, we always try to get the most inexpensive fare. So we flew on a major airline, and it was a lot of fun. We got here very inexpensively. We had 4 plane changes on the flight, 2 of them which were in the air. It was a little uncomfortable. But if you ever get a chance to fly on United Airlines, do that, because it's a very classy airline. Of course, American is too, and a lot of the other ones. United just happens to be interesting because they're serving a new delicacy on the airline. It's called brie. It's a cheese. How many people are familiar with that? It's a cheese that smells like a gym locker. You open up a little package and the oxygen mask, you sort of pop right down, right there. But the opportunity to fly around on an airplane and travel and talk to different people and to share a lot of different ideas is so extremely important to me, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. How exciting, how important it is to be in aviation. And folks, I must tell you, if I were an aviator in this spot right now, in the audience, I would feel very, very proud. As an aviator up here on stage, I feel extremely proud, but as a member of an aviation fraternity, in particular a group of people who are part of one of the best aviation organizations in the world, the organization that is probably responsible for keeping grassroots aviation alive and well in America, the EAA, I would feel very, very, very proud. And I feel very, very proud. Folks, again, one of the interesting things about pilots is we are very, very proud people. You know, there are only 650,000 pilots flying around right now with medicals. We don't know how many are flying around without medicals, but we know that there are 650,000 flying around right now with medicals. I'm just kind of curious, of the people in here, how many people in here, by applause, have soloed? How many people by applause have soloed? Excellent. Excellent. And does the FAA know of that solo? I'm kind of curious about that. Normally there should be the same amount of laughter versus applause on that particular one. You bet. Again, in aviation, such an exciting place to be. In fact, one of the interesting things about being an aviator is we like to tell people about what we do. I'm sorry? We're going to isolate the presentation to this section of the audience right over here for right now. We like to tell people about what we do. This is very, very exciting, being an aviator, and sometimes it's hard to find people that will stop and listen to us and share the camaraderie and the excitement of being in aviation. As a matter of fact, we like to talk about aviation so much that I have researched now 3 different forms of communication. The best communication, or the most effective communication. One is telephone, number 2 is telegraph, and number 3 is telepilot. Those are the 3 most effective forms of communication. And again, we like to tell people about what we do, but sometimes we just have a hard time breaking it into conversation, if you will. How many people in here can think back to a time when after they got their license, they first decided to cash a check? Can you think back to a time like that? When you went up to that supermarket and you found somebody behind that supermarket stand right there that didn't know you? And you were going to go up and cash a check, and you put that check right down there on that supermarket counter and just started to roll around and move like that, and you just followed that check around. And the check came up to that person behind the counter, and she picked up that check and she looked at it. And then she said the sweetest sound that could ever fall upon the ears of a pilot. She said, "I guess I'm going to need some ID for that." So you reached in your wallet and pulled it out so fast it almost caught fire as it came through your pant pocket right there. And you whipped out your pilot's license, you laid it down very proud right there on that supermarket counter. And then the second sweetest sound ever to fall upon the ears of the pilot, she looked at you and she said, "What is that?" Which now presupposes that you have to explain. So you brought out the regulations and showed her according to FAR 6165. All the things you had to learn, and people that were in back of you are moving to other sections of the supermarket. Wow, that's what I mean when I say feeling really proud. We like to tell people what we do, and in other words, that's our job as aviators, to sort of spread the word, if you will. As a matter of fact, I have a little nephew. His name is Brad. He's about 4 years old, and recently had a problem with thumb sucking. Well, my sister decided she was going to cure that problem. She's standing out in a park, and all of a sudden a fellow's walking by, a big, portly, gigantic, portly, a very, very big fat guy walking by, and my sister looks at Brad and she says, "Brad, look at that man right over there. That's going to happen to you if you don't stop sucking your thumb." And Brad, he pulled his thumb out so quick. 2 weeks later, they were in a supermarket, and all of a sudden Brad looks up, little bitty guy now, he sees a pregnant woman walking by. And so Brad just starts following her. He's following her up and down, aisle 11, aisle 10, aisle 15, aisle 13, aisle 10 again. And she's getting kind of nervous because there's this little midget following her. And she stops and she says, "Stop it, stop following me. I don't even know you." And little Brad looks up and says, "Yeah, but I know what you've been doing." Folks, we have to be like the kamikaze pilot as pilots. We have to be like kamikaze pilots in that I believe we have to do all our bragging ahead of time. How many people in here have pictures of their airplane, in other words, your airplane, in your wallet right now? Let me see. Raise your hand. Don't be ashamed. Raise your hand. Excellent. Now let me ask you a question. Is that picture in front of or behind your family? You know, we get so excited about aviation, want people to know what we're doing. We put that picture. I had one guy once, he just couldn't stand the thought of deciding who he's going to put first. So he put his family in the airplane, took a big old picture, and keeps it in his wallet right now. First page, right there on the wall. Gosh darn it. Folks, one of the neat things about aviation is that we can join groups like the Experimental Aircraft Association. I joined the EAA to have and share the camaraderie of being able to be with my fellow aviators. I also joined so that I could do experiments in airplanes. But this is just such an exciting thing, and to have that opportunity, you know, there are a lot of other groups around that actually perhaps are much larger than we aviation or we aviation buffs. And their groups extend into many different quadrants and many different facets of our society. As an example, lawyers. Now, lawyers are a very, very large group. But I don't know any lawyer that really feels as proud to be a part of their group as we aviators feel proud to be part of our aviation group. You know, I don't know what it is with lawyers. There's just something a little different about that. A buddy of mine's a doctor. His best friend died. And his best friend had a double indemnity insurance policy. Now, you know the insurance companies don't like to pay double of anything. So what they did was they sent an insurance lawyer agent out to question my doctor buddy in a deposition, you know, part of this large group of lawyers. He came out, and in a court deposition, you know, again, he's kind of suspicious that maybe the doctor forged this death certificate. In the deposition, the lawyer looks at my doctor buddy and says, "Now, sir, did you see the body of the alleged deceased?" My doctor buddy says, "You know, no, it was a natural death. I didn't have any reason to see the body." Then the lawyer said, "Well, then did you do an autopsy on the alleged deceased?" You know how lawyers talk. And my buddy said, "No, there was no reason. If I didn't see the body, I certainly couldn't have done an autopsy." And the lawyer said, "Well, then, did you go to the funeral of the alleged deceased?" And my doctor buddy said, "No, I was at the hospital delivering a baby at the time." And the lawyer looked at my doctor buddy and said, "Sir, then what we have here is no actual proof that the alleged deceased has expired." My doctor buddy looked down and said, "You know, that's a good point. Never did think about that. However, I do happen to have his brain in a jar in my office. And for all I know, he could be out practicing law somewhere." think you get my point. Very important to be proud of this particular group. Maybe that's why we as pilots, we as aviators, perhaps more so the flight instructor community in this instance, why we're so proud, and that's why we act proud and why we have a tendency to try at the airport to be as proud looking as we possibly can. Maybe that's why flight instructors always wear sunglasses, and they wear them all the time, even in the shower. They do that all the time. You can see this. You know a pilot's really proud and really is interested in showing other people how important aviation is and how much skill he has as a pilot, because you see this at the flight line all the time. You watch out at any flight line, you can even see it here today. Guy gets out of an airplane, you can tell he's a real super cool instrument rated pilot, and he's really excited about the concept of being an instrument pilot because he's got knee boards, 2 of them below the knee, 2 of them above the knee. He's got arm boards, neck board, belly board, surfboard, backboard, ironing boards. He's got everything. That's really proud. He's carrying 2 chart cases with clear plastic sides so you can see what's inside. 1 chart case is for the northern hemisphere, 1 chart case is for the southern hemisphere. And you know he's a student pilot transitioning to being a fully rated instrument pilot because he's wearing his hood as he's doing the pre-flight. Actual pre-flight, an entirely new concept in instrument flying. But that's what it means to be a really, really proud pilot. In this instance, very important thing about that. A buddy of mine happens to be a professional speaker, was at a cattlemen's convention doing a professional program there, and there were people walking around, you know, again, with the habiliment, the garments that show how proud they are to be part of their group. And he said he was standing by, 2 old-timers standing over there near a railing, and a woman walked by, and she's wearing a blouse sporting all the famous brands. One of the old-timers looks at the other and says, "I'll tell you what that means, Bob. Well, that critter there has changed hands a number of times." Look at that. That's what that means. You know, we flight instructors, too, flight instructors perhaps are, I like to think, because I'm a flight instructor, that we are exceptionally proud because we like to share with other people and pass this proud feeling and proud ethic on to our fellow pilots. And we flight instructors have a motto: put it in the seat and I can teach it to fly. If it can see lightning and hear thunder, I can teach it to fly. That's what we think. I think sometimes we may have a much more grandiose expectation of what our capabilities are as flight instructors, but that's the way we think. And by the way, some people came up and asked me, "Rod, what does it take to become a flight instructor?" Well, I want you to do this for me right now. Everybody repeat after me. More right rudder. Say that. As loud as you can, say that. I can't believe it. You didn't. I didn't think you'd do it. Okay, repeat after me. Let go, I've got it. Say that as loud as you can. Go, I've got it. You're 2/3 way there. Now for the last one. All you have to do is now say this right after me. Do you want to pay me now? Say that. Wonderful. I can't. You actually did it. What a wonderful group. We all ought to get together and go bowling sometime. This is just incredible. You folks are so much fun. See, a flight instructor, again, we're really proud because we've developed a lot of skills in communication. Well, we like to think we communicate very well, except for a buddy of mine. His name is Tim at Orange County Airport. Sent a student on a cross-country flight from Orange County Airport in Southern California down approximately about a mile, well, I'm sorry, it's about 50 miles, 50.2 miles or so away from Orange County Airport. It's an easy cross-country flight. You just go down, keep the ocean on your right, and land on your left. And you keep going, no problem. It should have taken no more than an hour and a half round robin. 7.5 hours later, I kid you not, folks, truth is stranger than fiction because fiction has to make sense. 7.5 hours later, delay reaction. 7.5 hours later, this student comes back on the cross-country flight. My flight instructor's worn a big old trench right there on the ground, pacing back and forth. They've had to hit him with a tranquilizer dart gun just to keep him from going crazy. His student comes back and he runs up the airplane. He says, man, what happened? I sent you on a cross-country flight an hour and a half. It should have taken no more, hour and a half with headwinds both directions. It should have taken you more than an hour and a half. What happened? And the student says, you know, next time you send me a cross-country flight, you got to stop giving me those directions like you give me. And my flight instructor buddy says, all I did was tell you to practice everything I taught you. And the student says, well, I know, but after I got done doing the S-turns across the road, steep turns, turns about a point, takeoff and landings at an uncontrolled field, I figured I'd have enough time to get back, but one thing that really messed me up was when I did that hood work. That just really messed me up so much. So my point is we have to really, I'll tell you what, we flight instructors are very proud, but we're not as cool as we look. Believe me, it just doesn't work. I know we're not as cool as we look. Orange County Airport in a Cessna 150 on approach, I was with a guy that was a big, tall Nordic fellow. He was a very hairy man. I mean, this guy was so hairy. If this guy went into the beach, went into the water, and came out, they'd have to pull dolphins off of him. I mean, that's how hairy this guy was. But he was such a big man, and he had this deep, well-modulated, resonant voice, and it was incredible. He'd say, on final approach. He was always so impressive. We come down, he says, well, I think we're doing pretty good now. I think the approach looks pretty good. Airspeed looks within the proper range there. The wings are perfectly level for the first time in 8 hours. That's excellent. We're looking pretty good. I think we're good. And all of a sudden, when he realized things weren't going too well, all of a sudden his voice would raise. He'd go, well, I think we're going to, I don't think we're going to make it. No, I don't think we're going to make it. I don't think. And I'm sitting over there. I'm cool. The reason I'm cool, I've been trained to sweat on the right side of my face only. We're coming down. And I'm saying, Bob, it'll be okay. I have that deep, well-modulated, resonant voice. Bob, it'll be okay. You're in good hands. You're under control here. And nothing's going to happen to you while I'm in the aircraft. Nothing's going to happen. You're coming down. He's going, no, I don't think I'm going to make it. I don't think I'm going to make it. Boom! 30 feet short of the runway. Dust flies up. He looks over at me and says, what happened? And I said, we didn't make it. We didn't make it. We didn't make it. My career's not going to make it. We didn't make it. We're history. So it took about 4 or 5 hours to get the testosterone flowing again, to get that voice back up in a regular pace. But you know, sometimes students think that they're really cool too when they're flying an airplane. You watch them sometimes. I see this a lot. After 7,000 hours of flying with students, this is amazing. Students on cross-country flights are sharp, sharp, sharp people at that stage on a cross-country flight. Because when you go up above 5,000 feet, you normally do what to the mixture control? You what? Okay, how many people have ever been over 5,000 feet? You lean it out, exactly. I asked a student one time, I said, Bob, how do you lean an airplane? He says, well, normally taking control and you do that. Stop that. Stop that. I didn't ask you that. I asked you how you lean the airplane. So well, just like this. And they lean it out, and they lean it out, and they get it up 7,500 feet, got it leaned out, and folks, their students will do that every single time. The thing that they won't do on the cross-country flight is de-lean it as they're going back down. They always forget that. I did, you did, everybody else in the world did, and people for the rest of eternity are going to forget it. And we flight instructors, we're so cool on the cross-country flight. The student's looking around, he can't see it, and they're trying all the things. They make a little hole right here, and they look for the airport that way. You've seen students do this before, right? It cuts out all the surrounding periphery, and they're looking like this for the airport, just like that. Okay, and sometimes you see students with actually the stereoscopic view, and they're doing it both times, just like that. And they're trying to find it, they can't. Then the students get smart, they look over at you and say, well, I think I see it now. And they watch your head. Your head goes boom. And then they turn the airplane in the direction that your head was facing. They're thinking people at that stage of the game. And then all of a sudden, as you go through 4,000 feet, they're descending. The mixer's sticking 2.5 foot out of the firewall. You have to pole vault over it in order to get on the other side. And they don't see it, you see it, and you're just letting it go. And all of a sudden, I'll tell you what happens, folks. No matter how cool a student is, when they go through 4,000 feet and they get down to traffic pattern altitude with that mixture control sticking that far out of the firewall, they reach over, they grab that throttle. The engine has quit. Graveyard dead. However, it is still moving. And as far as the student is thinking, as long as it's turning, everything will be okay. Because that's how we students think. Then they reach over, they grab that throttle, and they go like this. Then they start thinking, okay, I caught the carburetor by surprise. I ambushed the carburetor. I have found the second time when the students shove the throttle in, if they don't hear the noise, they make the noise themselves. Come on, baby. And then the third thing they do is they take their hands and they start pounding on it. Boom, boom, boom. That's called CPR, carburetor pulmonary resuscitation. And And then they look over at you, and as they look at you, they can't talk. Why can't they talk? Blood flow's cut off to the carotid arteries that go to the base of the brain. They're no longer having nourishing, oxygenated blood feeding the higher neocortex. The oxygenated blood is no longer going up there. Left hemisphere is disconnected. They're operating on the primitive mammalian R complex of their brain. They can't talk. They look at you and they go, oh. And you look over and say, you got a problem, don't you? And they point to the throttle, draw a big red circle with a slash through it. Then you say, Bob, do what I told you to do when you have an emergency. What did I tell you to do anytime you have an emergency in the aircraft? And Bob takes the controls and goes like this. Anya, you fly for a while. Get back there. What did I tell you to do? Engine failure checklist. So the kid thinking all of a sudden to reach over, he grabs those keys and goes click, click, and then takes and breaks them out of the ignition, holds them up, and then you go, oh. You sound like two Australopithecus people from the years of antiquity going, oh, oh, oh. You sound like a seal show at SeaWorld. Say, Bob, check that carburetor heat. He reaches over, he grabs that carburetor heat, and all of a sudden he grabs. You ever had somebody do this in an airplane before? And they grab it and they pull. And as they're pulling, you ever had that before? Because he's thinking, man, if I can get that carburetor to come through that firewall, ain't no ice going to form out of that. And you're over there going, oh, oh. You reach over, draw a big red circle around, put a slash right there, the carburetor, don't touch that, man. The kid sees what the problem is, and he reaches his foot up and kicks that firewall through the mixture through the firewall. Wow, what an incredible learning experience. Boy, nobody's cool in the airplane in that case. And I'll tell you what, you know who those students are, because next time you see them on a cross-country flight, what do? That's right, they don't lean. So if you see a Cessna 150 at 12,000 feet with black contrails, you know whose student it is. My student. Darn it. My whole point is this: aviation is a tremendous adventure that very few people can ever share. I'll tell you what, folks, we like to think that we, in aviation, are very technically sophisticated. We like to think that we're sophisticated in terms of psychology. We like to think we're sophisticated in terms of technology in aviation. But I'll tell you what, we as aviators and we as people on the planet, because of the rate of information change, the way things change so quickly, my observation is this, that things change so quickly, we're not as sophisticated as we think. What does that mean to us? It means that when we fly, there are always new things to be dealt with, new equipment to work, and as a result, what happens is aviation is inherently an adventure. It's exciting because you don't quite know what's going to happen. I'll tell you what, many people think, no, Rod, that's not true. We are sophisticated. Let me ask you this question. How many people have ever been driving their automobile, had it break down, and you had to go out and fix it? You ever had that problem within the last 5 years? Do that. You walk outside your car, and you walk over, you lift up that hood. You say, honey, I'll be right back. I'm going to fix the car. So you walk out there, you lift up that hood, you open it, and you look inside. And all of a sudden you go, oh, oh, oh. And you close the hood, and you go back, and she said, what's the matter? And you say, it's broken. And she says, can we be a little more vague about that? What are you looking for underneath the hood? I know what you're looking for. A big circuit breaker. Oh, there's the problem. Click and put it back on. We've been outstripped by our technology. Maybe we're not as sophisticated as we think. How many people in here have VCRs? Anybody have a VCR? By a show of hands? By applause. How many people have VCRs? Excellent. And how many people in here have VCRs that are still flashing 12 midnight? How many people have that? Yeah, that's what I thought. I go over to a buddy of mine's house. He's an engineer. Now, how many engineers, by applause, do we have in here? Engineers. Excellent. Excellent. Now, I personally never driven a train. But I like to sometime. I go over to his house, This man is a highly technically sophisticated PhD in electrical engineering. I walk over, I look at his VCR, and he's got a piece of black electrician tapes over the 12 flashing midnight. This guy makes the airplanes we fly around in. This is not good. Oh, we like to think that we're so sophisticated that we can handle any problem that would come up no matter whatsoever. Folks, do you know statistically, talk about not having to have to take care of ourselves and being sophisticated. Do you know that you can have a pizza delivered to your house quicker statistically than the police will respond off an emergency call? Are you aware of that? This is known as the domino effect. I'm totally serious. No, if you have a problem, don't call the police. Because we have to be sophisticated enough to take care of ourselves. Call Domino's Pizza. And when they say, what do you want on top? Say, I'd like tomatoes, pickles, lettuce, and a 45. Ask them that. I'll tell you what. Is that the Turbo 150 flyby? I'll tell you an interesting concept. We like to think that because nowadays in the 20th century, because we are so sophisticated, we don't have to worry about the problems that our Australopithecus brothers had to worry about many years ago. I'm talking about being eaten alive. Do you know that you can go to the airport and be eaten alive? Are you aware of that? Let me show you. Danny, can I have that airplane right there? That's 747. Thank you. Here we are. Do a flyby for you on the 747. Here we go. Let me show you the ground proximity indicator. Truth is stranger than fiction because fiction has to make sense. Long Beach Airport, 1987, December of 1987, at the international fly-in at Long Beach Airport in Southern California, there was a student pilot holding short of runway 30, big, long runway at Orange County, holding short of runway 30, and he was waiting to take off. He's out there and he's thinking, man, it's a great day to fly. It couldn't be any better. It's beautiful, it's clear, my instructor's out of town. And the Hobbs meter is disconnected. What more could I possibly want? And he's holding short, and all of a sudden behind him comes one of the largest transport category aircrafts in the world. I'm talking about a C-5A Galaxy. This thing, this megalith, aluminum overcast, this megalith comes taxiing behind him, and all of a sudden stops. And stops right behind him. Here's a little guy, here's that big. And he's holding right there. And then all of a sudden, the C-5A is on tower frequency and ground control. The little bitty airplane's on tower frequency. The C-5A captain on ground control calls the tower and says, you know, we forgot to load a Jeep. It's still in the back area. You mind if we load him right here? And the tower controller says, no, go right ahead. Now, do you know how they load a C-5A? All of a sudden, the nose of the C-5A and the student pilot's in his airplane. He looks behind him and he sees something his instructor never told him about. As he looks behind him, he goes, oh. Oh. So he starts looking for the microphone. Where's that thing? He picks it up. And as most students, they transmit and they look into it, waiting for the video picture to come on. And he goes, tower, Long Beach Tower. Oh, oh. And the tower, knowing the international vocabulary for student pilots, comes back and says, is that you, 32 Bravo, a student pilot? And the guy in the airplane says, Tower, what's that man doing? Now, the guy in the C-5A is listening to this. He hears the transmission. He picks up his microphone with a great sense of humor and says, well, little buddy, we're going to eat you. The guy in the airplane calls Tower and says, Tower, what's that man going to do? And the guy in the tower says, well, 32 Bravo, it looks like he's going to eat you. It's just going to suck you right in there, 32 Bravo. They cleared him for takeoff, and that little guy, I tell you, you could see him peeling out and burning the rubber. There must have been Jado bottles on that 150. What an incredible thing. You see, whether in aviation there's always a risk to be taken, but there are always many fascinating things that can happen as a result of that risk. Folks, one of the things in aviation we have to learn, and this is so important, and I talk about this in my cassette tape series, I talk about the politics of awareness, how to be aware and avoid those natural predators that can cause us great concern. Because we aviators, if we think in terms of the people of antiquity, we realize that there are natural predators to be dealt with. Distraction, inattention, complacency are those natural predators. And if you don't think that we are all subject to that, which indeed makes aviation a great adventure, avoiding these natural predators. Think about this. Let me take you back to 1981, on Ozark Airlines. Now, Ozark Airlines has been merged with another airline, so I really can't tell you the name of the other airline. Well, I can give you their initials, TWA. And how could this happen to two people in a 737? What an adventure, but how could this happen? Co-pilot's in the right seat of the airplane says, Captain, I'll be right back. I'm going to go out to the John, I'll be right back. Captain says, okay, go right ahead. So he went out and went to the John. Captain says, you know, I got this thing on autopilot. I think I'll go back and get me a cup of coffee real quick. He gets up, he walks back out, and you know on those airline doors, they are trained to lock. As he walks out, all of a sudden the door goes click, he goes, oh. He walks up there, click, 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 click. Co-pilot comes out of the John and says, hey, Bob, how you? And these two guys are sitting there going, They had to get a fire extinguisher to use as a ramrod to bust through the door. Now think about this. What would you be thinking if you were in first class watching that? Bob, take a look at these guys over here. Look at this. Well, those boys sure must want to fly awful bad. Look, they're trying to get up there with those other pilots. Distraction, inattention, complacency. What makes flying such a great adventure? Because we have to think on our toes every time we fly. I'll tell you what, there was a major airline flying along from Albuquerque, New Mexico to San Diego. And on this major airline, as they were flying, all of a sudden the lavatory valve on the right seat, on the right side of the airplane, the left side of the airplane facing this direction, that's right in front of the #1 engine, the lavatory purge valve started to leak and blew lavatory effluviant. You understand what I'm saying, right? People are going, we got it, Rod. No more detail. We got it completely. Blue lavatory effluviant started to escape the valve, and all of a sudden the ice chunk broke off and was just sucked into the engine's fans, and these change in forces stopped the engine so suddenly that the engine literally was ripped off the airplane. The co-pilot's sitting, or the flight engineer sitting in his seat, and all of a sudden he sees a bunch of lights go, just like that. Oh. He's looking at all those lights. Captain goes back and says, hey, Bob, you better go back there and check that out. So Bob starts to walk back. He gets down to the middle of the galley, and all of a sudden there's a galley cart blocking his path. He can't go any further. And as he says, wait a minute. He says, no big deal. So he walks back and says, Captain, I can't see back there because they're serving passengers breakfast, but I'll just turn this thing off. Click, 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 click. We got 2 engines, no problem. Click, 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 click. Turn it on. Wonderful. They land at San Diego Airport. As they land, the controller picks up his microphone and says, yes, Flight 117A, you guys experience any difficulty? Captain says, no. Tower says, well, sir, your right or left engine is gone. And the captain says, say what? They say, your left engine is gone, as in not there anymore. Captain says, Bob, you go back there and you see if it's really gone. And now that's why this major air carrier, whenever they fly, they have engine quantity indicators on their 727. Understand what I'm saying? I told this last year, and some of those people haven't heard it, but you know there's a great opportunity to experience the adventure of flying. You know the Oklahoma Physiology Laboratory indicated that the greatest stress that a student pilot experiences during flight and during their flight training is stress greater than or equal to the stress experienced by a combat pilot under combat conditions. Do you know what is the one thing that causes that stress? Do you have any idea? Talking to air traffic controllers. Because air traffic controllers speak at 60 with peak gusts to 90, don't they? If you've never heard an air traffic controller talk, folks, let me tell you, at Orange County Airport, we have one gentleman that can talk so fast, I'm afraid for him. I fear for this man. Because I'm afraid he's going to be talking sometimes and his false teeth are going to shoot out. And he's going to pick him back up and stick him in his mouth upside down before they can stop him. He's going to chew off the top of his head. If you're a student pilot at the airport holding short of the runway, and all of a sudden the controller calls up and says, "Mr. Bob, you ready for takeoff? Okay, after departure, I want to make a left 360 over the airport court and continue to climb heading 360 degrees. Now I want to fly heading 350 degrees, 360 degrees, 370 degrees, make a left 360 over the airport, descend maintain 4,000 foot, contact departure control 7700 on squawk 121.5. You got that now?" The student looks at you and they always go, "Is he talking to me?" They always say four things. "Is he talking to me? What did he say? I think he wants to talk to you for a while." At Orange County Airport, I've actually heard this with a student pilot in the run-up area, and all of a sudden the student pilot, he's with his instructor, and the guy's really nervous, and you can tell he's nervous. His instructor's giving him good instructional guidance. He picks up the microphone and says, "What do I say? What do I say?" "Tell him you want to take off." "I want to take off." "What do I say now?" "Nothing. Let go of that button." Click. Now, controllers have a great sense of humor. I know this for a fact because I actually heard this come over the radio in a secondary transmission. Click. "Well, what do I say?" "Tell him he's cleared for takeoff." "You're cleared for takeoff." "What do I say now?" "No, nothing. Let go of that button." I'm not proud to tell you this. I'm not proud to tell you. I'm going to tell you anyway because you can profit from my experience at Orange County Airport in 1976, downwind. I was with a student of mine. He was Japanese. Well, not was. He still is. I got to get that right. We were downwind. Now Paul had about, 25 hours. He was gaining a command of the English language. He was an engineer, a very intelligent man. We turned downwind. He picks up his microphone and goes, "What kind of talk? We're downwind at what kind of airport now? What do you like us to do?" Click. And the controller comes on and says, "Okay, Mr. Bravo, you're downwind artist, a student pilot. I can tell by that accent. I want you to follow that traffic. Go ahead, and you're number 24 to land at Orange County Airport. You can't follow that traffic over there. You go outside the airport to about 5 miles till you get a low fuel light, and then you can call us and get it back in. You can one touch and go, only one touch and go. We can't even one touch and go. That's all we can do. Okay, you understand that? Click." And Paul says, "Oh, for real? Is he talking to me?" And I said, "Man, I hope he's not talking to me." Paul said, what do you want me to say?" Now, I'm not proud to tell you this, but it makes flying such a great adventure. I said, "Well, you speak Japanese, don't you?" He says, "Of course, I'm still Japanese." I said, "Well, speak a little Japanese to him." That's what he said. Go ahead. Go ahead. Paul goes, click. Dead silence. All of a sudden, controller comes on and you hear, "Okay, we're going to work it out. Nobody's going to get hurt. Is there an instructor on board of the airplane?" I picked up the microphone. I'm not proud to tell you this, but I went, click. "Oh, I am instructor." Click. I'm not proud. I'm not proud to tell you. I'm sorry. Of course I would do it again, but I'm sorry, yes. Wow. Wow. Don't ever tell me flying's not a great adventure. It's an excellent adventure. There's so many exciting things to learn and incredible things to see, folks. I'll just be so proud that you are in aviation. Be so excited because, again, aviation is just a wonderful, wonderful place to be. And just think about it. Again, be aware of those natural predators, the things. Be aware of the things that can get you, and be proud of the fact that very few people have the right stuff. You all have the right stuff. You're here at the largest, most incredible air show in the entire world, hanging around with the most marvelous people in the world, and you all have the right stuff. The people with the right stuff, you know, they didn't come here. They couldn't find the place. You think all the airplanes here would queue them in, but they couldn't find it. You have the right stuff. A lot of people don't have the right stuff. We still have people going through hamburger stands nodding at the speakers. Folks, there are still people out there that think professional wrestling is real. How many people think professional wrestling is real? No applause. No applause, please. Don't give it away. Oh, so I had a student one time come to the airport. I knew he didn't have the right stuff. Had burns on both sides of his ears. I said, Bob, how'd you get burns on your ears? He says, man, you're not going to believe this. I was ironing when the phone rang. So how'd you get burned on the other side of your ear? He said, well, somebody had to call the hospital. You see, a lot of people suffer from something known as student advection fog. Do you know what student advection fog is? It's warm, moist knowledge flowing over a cool, dry brain. And if you don't think some people don't have the right stuff, take a look at Sporty's pilot catalog. That neat catalog you get where you can see all those great things in there. They have coasters in there. Coasters you put your drinks on that have embedded, embossed inside pictures of sectional charts and IFR charts. And on the bottom of those those coasters, you see a little bitty sign that says, not to be used for navigation. Now, folks, you got to ask yourself this question. Why did they have to put that on there? I had a student one time in ground school. I said, why should we never blow into the torpedo tube? He stuck up his hand. He said, pick me, pick me. I said, okay, Bobby, what? He says, because that sucker's hot. Give me your certificate now. Give it here. He was out pre-flighting the airplane with torpedo heat on and thought, you know, I think there's an insect in there. I think I'll just clear. Right there. He said he walked around like this for a week. All he could say is, oh. Said he puts his lips up against it, heard something sounds like bacon frying. Wow. But you see, to have the right stuff means you as a pilot avoid temptation. You have to have enough discipline, self-discipline, to be able to avoid the temptation of get-home-itis, the desire to get to a place that nobody else can get to. Even rated airline transport pilots, even people that fly the SR-71, or the B-1 or B-2 bomber, or the ABCD bomber. These people don't go because nobody in their right mind would go, but we have to have enough sense to avoid the temptation of going there. And if you don't think that we pilots are tempted to do things that we know to be wrong, ask yourself this question. Why does an airplane manufacturer put the Hobbs meter fuse on the engine side of the firewall? Take some time on that one. What about the guy at Long Beach Airport? We have a deep water harbor at Long Beach Airport, and there was an aircraft carrier in 1971, I couldn't make this up if I wanted to, ported in the harbor. They're refurbishing the ship. He's flying around in his Cessna 150 above the Long Beach harbor. There's a little devil on his shoulder saying, do it. One time, do it. One time. One time, do it, do it. Little angel on the other shoulder saying, do it. One time, do it, do it. He comes down. Today is his lucky day. He's coming down perfect approach. And I was like, whoa, man, this thing is short. Boom, 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 takes back off. And people come running out and say, what was that out there? World's biggest mosquito. What was that? That was incredible. Don't tell me we're not tempted as pilots. We are. There's a lot of temptation. I challenge you all in this case then to avoid the natural predators, inattention, distraction, complacency, to be challenged, to be thrilled by the act of flying an airplane because it's such a rare thing. And I challenge you to do one last thing. Let me just start the end of this presentation by asking you to do one very important thing for me. And that is to ask yourself a lot of questions when you fly. Richard Buckminster Fuller many years ago said, Richard Buckminster Fuller, the architect, the mathematician, a man that has now gone to that great run-up area in the sky, but an incredible man when he said the only way to think is to ask yourself questions. There is no other way. Ask yourself questions. That's how we think. When you're flying, keep that running dialogue like, man, what's going on out there? Look at that. Whoa, look at these. There are more airplanes going this way than there are going in my direction. What does that mean? Ask yourself questions. That running dialogue is very important. Why? Because Professor Mortimer Adler at the Philosophic Research Institute of New Jersey says 3% of the people think. 3% of the people think they think, and 94% of the people would rather die than think. Adler says if most people were to say what's on their mind, they would be speechless. And if you don't think people don't think, folks, let me take you back to Orange County Airport, Southern California in 1987, October 12th. On October 12th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 500 miles off the coast of California, out on the Pacific Rim, there was a 7.2 magnitude earthquake registered by the National Oceanic Administration. And NOAA forecast, as a result of that earthquake, a tsunami warning to reach the Southern California coast by 2:45. Now, for those folks who don't know what a tsunami is the Japanese word for surf's up. Supposed to reach the Southern California coast at 2:45, folks, at 2:15. By 2:15, those warnings were broadcast over all the major radio stations in Southern California. And by 2:30 in the afternoon, for the first time in recorded history in Huntington Beach, between the streets of Beach Boulevard and Golden West Avenue on Pacific Coast Highway, 100 feet from the water, there stood 5,500 people on Pacific Coast Highway with their instrumentic cameras waiting to take a picture of the tidal wave. Now, folks, I must tell you, this is Mother Nature's very delicate way of weeding out people that don't think. Very important. I mean, I drove around for a half-hour time for a place to park my car. I drove around, I couldn't find any place whatsoever. Oh, we need to think. That's very, very important. Think about this. I want you to think about just one or two little things here, and I challenge you to do this. I challenge you, when you fly, number one, to think about doing something a little different than you've done it before. Pre-flight the opposite direction, rather than getting caught in the ritual of pre-flighting one way. Go around one way, then go around the other way. Do something a little different. Try to do something. Try to hold altitude within a greater tolerance when you fly. In other words, instead of plus or minus 1,000 feet. The altitude within plus or minus 100 feet, okay? Without having to update the altimeter setting, if you understand what I'm saying. Try to hold your heading precisely and keep your hand off that DG knob. Try to do something a little different. Polish and improve our skills. Ask a lot of questions when you fly. And consider this very, very important point. Think a little differently in terms of making every flight that you go on an extremely enjoyable, pleasant flight. In terms of thinking that you're not going to, no matter what the internal press of get-home-itis is, to exceed your personal limitations. We know what those limitations are, but we have to be cognizant of them. I think it's very important always to think in terms of having a great deal of fun when you fly. Enjoy yourself. Make it fun. If you have friends that are not having fun in their training process, for gosh sakes, get them, furlough their flight instructor, get them a new flight instructor, let them have fun. And that's very, very important because flying is an extremely fun thing. I challenge you to do this when you fly. Two very important rules I'm going to leave you with. Number one, always look for the folly in life. Look for the fun, strange, unique things that are in existence. Look for the wild things. I went into the porta potty over here. This is excellent. It says capacity, 10 people. That's what it says. That's a lie. I can only fit 5 in there. Why is that sign there? Well, you go to the Hilton. There's a sign on the side of the wall that says, use stairs for restroom. Well, you can get thrown in jail for that. Woody Allen says in his book Without Feathers, he says, the lion and the lamb shall lie down together, but the lamb won't get much sleep. There's so much fun to go, so many exciting things to do. How many people are here are country western song fans, I'll bet? Oh, excellent, excellent. Okay, I guess I won't be telling this joke. Listen to your country western song titles. These are actual true country western song titles. My wife got hit by a train, but the dog's okay. That's a true. There's another one that says, I can't get over you, so you're going to have to get up and turn off the light yourself. That's a true song title. There's another one that says, how can I miss you if you never go away? And there's another one that says, I'm so miserable without you, it's almost like having you here. And my last favorite is this. There ain't enough whiskey in Tennessee to wipe the ugly off of you. Male and female. That works both ways. The second rule, and this is very, very important. Again, learn to see the folly in life. Look for the unique. Look for the different. It'll help you out in terms of cognitive development in other areas if we learn to see things just a little bit differently. The third thing is this. Develop a sense of play. Develop a sense of play. You know, have fun. You know, when you call ground control, use a foreign accent. They're tired of hearing the same old regular English accent. Use a foreign one. Orange County Ground Control. Oh. I did this at Orange County Airport. 213 Bravo, ready to tax out. We have the information Toyota. He comes on and says, oh, you kamikaze pilot? I says, yes, going to dive into control tower and make this uncontrolled airport today at Orange County Airport. Have fun. Do something a little different. Enjoy yourself. Diane and I do this whenever we get on an elevator. Like we do this at every hotel we go to. We move to the back of the elevator when the doors close like that. And a bunch of people get on. We pretend like we don't know each other. And we stick our arm out like that. We join arms. I say, how you doing? She says, oh, I'm a little lonely, I guess. I said, well, gee, would you care to join me in my room for a drink? And she says, well, I thought no one would ask. So we walk off the elevator. We go about 20 feet, stop, take a look behind us. We saw the guys holding the door open with their heads sticking outside going, because we really need to get along, and playing is so much fun. It takes the stress off of you and puts it on those guys right back there. I'll tell you what, we need that. A buddy of mine's been married 4 times. Decided he can no longer take it. He just can't get along. Been married 4 times. He says he's no longer going to get married again. Every 4 years he's going to find a woman that hates him. He's going to buy her house. The deal that American Airlines did in their DC-10, a buddy of mine, in 1976. Now that DC-10, he had this big old video screen. Remember that video screen? You can see the captain over here. Here's the video screen. Here's the captain over here. Here's the co-pilot over here. Flight engineer, he's so junior, can't even get in the picture. 3 throttles sticking right up right there. Captain sent the flight engineer down to the costume parlor to purchase, before the flight, a large hairy gorilla glove. On takeoff, video screen on, everybody sitting there in first class coach and laboratory section. That's great, we're going to see a takeoff. Professional pilots flying an airplane, this is going to be so cool. Look at that body. And they're watching, and all of a sudden, Captain snaps his fingers, and a big old giant hairy gorilla hand comes up there and grabs the throttles and goes, people in the first class section going, Bobby, take a look at that. That's that guy who used to fly with Rod in that airplane. The real hairy one. Look at that. He's right up there right now. and everybody's watching. All of a sudden, that wouldn't have been so bad, but the co-pilot, all of a sudden the hand reaches over, taps the co-pilot on the side. Co-pilot looks at the hand, nods, reaches down into a brown paper bag, gives the hand a banana, and the hand disappears off the screen. Wow. American Airlines thought it was so great, they gave the crew 30 days off to figure out how to have more fun. But we need people like this, and that's very important. We need people just like this. And folks, I'm going to wind up by saying this. If you are in aviation, whether you realize it or not, aviation has allowed you to be transformed in very subtle ways. Very subtle ways that you are not even aware of. Only because I've researched this am I aware of the profound impact that we pilots experience when we fly. Because when that first Russian cosmonaut, Gagarin, walked out of that spaceship in the spacewalk, he was supposed to go out for a 20-minute EVA, 20 minutes. It took an hour and a half with a Russian general commanding him to get back in the spaceship. Because all he was doing out there was floating around going, oh. They couldn't talk him back in. It was such a profound experience. Michael Collins in Apollo 11, when he went out behind the moon with Buzz and Neil, and they descended down to the lunar surface, and Michael Collins was alone by himself in that spacecraft. He went out a poet, and an engineer, in his own words, he came back a poet. Because of the transformative experience. Bach did not write music in order to be able to entertain people. His intent in writing music was to entertain, but most importantly, to show people how through what would normally be disharmony with notes that were, again, unrelated, in discord. By combining those notes in such a poetic sort of way, he had the ability to show that what would be considered, again, disharmony would be a very beautiful composure. Something that could be unique and could inspire as mankind. Renoir, the French painter's passion in life was to paint a picture of Christ. So moving and so powerful it would convert people to Christianity by looking at the picture. And aviation has that profound effect. As Lloyd Haynes, the late actor Lloyd Haynes in Santa Monica, California, demonstrated, when he took juvenile delinquents who have and had a high rate of recidivism, return to juvenile delinquency, and he would take these people and he would train them in airplanes till they solo, and he supported much of this program from his own pocketbook, because he knew that when they were trained in airplanes, they developed a sense of responsibility and an awesome respect for this ability to know that you can be self-reliant, control the thing yourself, and that's what gives people self-respect. That's what gives you a new insight that maybe you don't even realize you have. And that's very, very important to consider. I'd like you to consider that. And his students or his people had the lowest rate of recidivism or return to juvenile delinquency, and that's very powerful. And I hope you believe it the way I tell it. And I really hope you believe that. As a matter of fact, my little nephew Brad, now he's 7 years old, he comes home from Catholic school, and as he walks in, he says, Mom, I got to tell you, it's one incredible story, Mom, oh, it's incredible. He said, they told us this story, it was incredible. They parachuted Moses behind enemy lines into Egyptian territory. They dropped him in there. He had hand grenades, flamethrower, gun, barbed wire, had fire, and everything else like that. And he took his commandos. They went back and they gathered up those Israelites, and they made a commando raid out of Egypt. And then they came to the Red Sea, and they had to call God in to drop large girders and steel tubes and things so that they could build this bridge across the Red Sea. And then when they got across, all of a sudden the enemy was coming at them, so God called in reinforcements and blew up the bridge, and they all escaped to freedom. And my sister looked at him and she says, Brad, now that's not how it happened. And Brad looked up and says, I know, Mom, but you'd never believe it the way they told it. So I hope you believe it the way I told it. And I'd like to say this. I'd like to do this real quick, just a few minutes over my time here. I'd like to give a couple of these things away. These are a couple of my cassette courses that I'm over in booth, the North Pavilion. Come up and say howdy. You know, I'd love to meet some people. People don't come up and say howdy. I'd like to do this. I'd like to give one away to the person who is here in Oshkosh from the greatest distance away. In other words, from another country. You have anybody here from, well, who? Sir? Where?
Australia.
Australia. What do you think? You win. Come on. How about passing that back to that gentleman right there? And I'd like to say this, there's nobody in here I would not be proud to call a fellow friend aviator and be proud to fly with. Thank you very much. I'll be out here behind the curtain if you want to come up and talk after the program. Take care, God bless, good flying, and I'm so happy to be a member of the EAA. Thank you very much.
Thank you.